So I'm not really one to do video game reviews. I mean, currently the only thing I've really been reviewing is new DVD chapter patch notes, like the patch notes that releases every time a new chapter is gonna drop. But I decided to try something new and review an actual video game, shake things up a bit, which might be a bit odd, as I do try to be very positive with things I review, which can be a downside. I like to give the benefit of the doubt. So today I'm going to be reviewing DBD's newest spin-off game, The Casting of Frank Stone, which released just about a month ago at the time of recording this video. I mean, we've only really had two other spin-off games for DBD, but this is the most serious one they've created. The very first one was obviously Hooked on You, and the second one was obviously What the Fog. But those are not really serious. Those are kind of just like fun games that you can play when you have some spare time. But you get the point. So I'm going to be talking about this. Now, one thing I should address before I review the actual game is, why am I playing DBD as the background footage? And you'll understand why once I explain my opinion on the casting of Frank Stone. One thing I should note is that this is going to contain a lot of spoilers and some things that are noteworthy in the casting of Frank Stone. So if you haven't played the game or haven't watched somebody play it, I would advise you to at least go watch someone else play it, and you'll understand why in just a moment. So let's start with the casting of Frank Stone. So the reason that I am choosing Dead by Daylight to play as the background is because the casting of Frank Stone, in my opinion, is very disappointing for this specific reason. And the specific reason is because the casting of Frank Stone is like 40% just watching cutscenes. Like, you get these really, really long cutscenes. It kind of reminds me of every time a new chapter is released and Behavior releases an animated trailer for each chapter. It's kind of like that. But a lot of the game is just watching cutscenes. Like, when I first started the game, it took me about 3 minutes before I could actually play it because the cutscenes were so long. And the cutscenes take up, like I said, a good 40% of the gameplay because you'll start a chapter and you'll watch about 3 minutes worth of cutscenes. And this game is a decision-making game, so you'll sometimes have to make a decision. It's like Minecraft Story Mode, or some other games of that nature. So you make decisions. But you don't really get too many decisions to make. Once in a blue moon, you'll get a decision. And you might be thinking, oh, well, they must be drastic decisions that you make in this game. Not really. Some of the decisions you make are just conversations. Like, it's just, oh, how are you doing today? One option, I'm doing fine. The other option, I'm doing horrible. So it just kind of destroys the momentum, in my opinion. Or it builds up momentum and then you don't even really have that much payoff. Because again, a lot of these decisions don't really affect the gameplay. There is a few that does affect the gameplay and the story, but for the most part, a lot of it is just kind of random questions and stuff like that. I want to make decisions that impact the gameplay. So I would like to have, at least, if you're going to have that many decisions, they should, if you're going to have, decisions that are relatively minor, at least make a bunch of them. But no, this game throws out a decision maybe every 20 minutes, and it's really, really annoying. So it's a lot of cutscenes, obviously, and then sometimes you make a decisions, and most of the time, like I said, it's just decisions that don't really matter. So it makes the game feel very underwhelming. Now, my other problem with the game, and it doesn't even seem to be my computer, it seems to be a lot of people's computer, but the game runs pretty poorly at times. Sometimes my FPS dropped all the way down to, like, single digits, which is horrendous. And again, it doesn't even seem to be my computer. I have a fairly good laptop, and other people seem to note how the game performs poorly as well. Even the devs have stated that there seems to be some kind of performance issues. And while the game's graphics looks amazing, I can run very high maintenance games on this computer with very little issues. I ran several of the Resident Evil games, a lot of the more modern Resident Evil games, such as Resident Evil 2's remake, Resident Evil 4's remake, and now Resident Evil 3's remake. Yeah, that's a bit out of order, I know. And not only do these games have beautiful graphics, but they're also more ambitious in gameplay with a lot of combat and a lot of crazy cutscenes like some of the mutants and stuff like that. So I feel like, and again, those games run smoothly on my computer. So I personally feel like if those games are running pretty smoothly on my computer, then this game, which, while it does have amazing graphics, also doesn't have very ambitious gameplay. I feel like, by that point, it should run perfectly fine instead of running like poop. But hey, I'm no technician, so what do I know? But this issue can be solved with a few patch notes, so that's not really a big issue in my opinion. It's still a pretty big issue, but it's something that can be relatively fixed with a few minor patch notes, or of course in my case probably just switching a few parts of my PC. But hey, what can you do? Plus, the reason I put the whole gameplay loop, like how it's just mostly cutscenes first, is because that's a more dire issue in my opinion, because while performance issues can be solved by either updating your computer or updates by the developers, you kind of have to break down the entire game and restructure the entire game for stuff like how the gameplay is set up, and that's just really, really annoying. But anyways, let's talk about the story of the casting of Frank Stone, and some of the characters as well. I liked a lot of the characters. Specifically, 3 of the main characters are Sam Green, Madison, and Linda Castle. And these are probably my favorite. These have a lot of focus, and they didn't annoy me, and actually had a reason behind a lot of their actions. Characters like Stan or Robert just didn't feel fleshed out, especially Stan. He just kind of felt like some greedy liar with no real reason behind it. At least Augustine, the main villain, was a Black Veil member. Stan was just kind of a liar. He felt like another reality's version of Ace Visconti. In fact, I gotta talk about this reference. It's so funny. So at the beginning of the game, you play as Sam Green and question the security guard at the steel mill. The man's name is Tom, and he wore a blue hat, and on the side of the hat it said Ace Hat, which is clearly a direct reference to Ace Visconti. Just a fun detail I should include. Now, the titular character, Frank Stone, his role in the game kind of feels lackluster. It really felt like there should have been more explanation about the entity's survivor and killer selection process, as Augustine really put a lot of work into bringing Frank Stone back, seemingly traveling both to the 80s in the game and the 60s, just to bring this psycho back to life. And yet, there's no reason why she would do so much stuff dedicated to bringing this man back. Why the entity could possibly have wanted Frank Stone? That's my question. Why are they so dedicated to getting him in specific? Because it always felt weird that there's these very specific survivors, and how we don't see that many other survivors. I will say though, Frank Stone's appearance and his powers when he came back to life, this is of course spoiler territory, is raw.
And the big surprise is the first is raw!
Absolutely raw. The food Gordon Ramsay criticized for being raw suddenly became burnt beyond comprehension compared to Frank Stone's appearance in the later half of the game. Frank Stone used to just be Trapper that Mom told us we had at home, but when he was resurrected, he suddenly became so much cooler. Part of his power in the game does remind me of Dredge when he consumes people, but even then, this is more terrifying because Dredge probably just sends survivors back to the campfire after consuming them. Frank Stone seems to put them in a prison of pain inside of his body, because when he did it to Stan in the game, and you could see Stan's face come out, and he starts screaming about how much it hurts. And again, that's raw. It's like if Frank Stone came to DVD, I would probably main him. Oh, don't worry, we're getting to you later. Some other things I feel like I probably should mention would have to be the actual references in this game to DVD. While I mentioned, of course, Tom wearing Ace's hat, or a hat that has Ace's name on it, there's a lot of references, especially in Augustine, the main villain's house. I won't list all of them, but I will link a video to showcase more of the references you can find in this game. For one, you can find a series of collectibles in the game that are basically plushies and figurines of some of DVD's own killers. These include, but are not limited to, Trapper, Wraith, Hillbilly, Nurse, Huntress, Legion, etc. Augustine also holds a lot of DVD references. She even has a book that talks about the Fold, which is the cult that was talked about in Dredge's lore. as well as some statues of Hillbilly, and several areas around the house, and my personal favorite puzzle, where you find a dial to a combination lock. And on that dial, there's a picture of the perk Play With Your Food, which is a reference to the licensed chapter of Halloween in Dead by Daylight, which to me basically confirms that the licensed chapters are indeed canon. And I do have one big spoiler that I want to share right now, and it's part of the ending of the game. So let me play that for you. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You get to see the original, three of the original survivors. They're still in the game, which is amazing. And there is one more thing relating to DBD references. Well, sort of. And it's talking about how Frank Stone could possibly come into DBD as his own killer. You see, at the very end of the game, or at least the ending I got the ending where everyone got killed. So, kind of sad, but I guess in DBD's context, this is actually one of the better endings. But regardless, at the very end of the game, you see another version of Augustine. And then it zooms out and showcases a plushie or a toy of Frank Stone, and you get to find this. It's another collectible, basically. And it gives him the name The Champion. Now, the reason I feel like this could mean Frank Stone could come into the game is all the killers in Dead by Daylight, except from a few exceptions, have an alias. You got the Trapper, the Legion, and then there's of course licensed characters, the Shape for Michael Myers, the Nightmare for Freddy Krueger, etc. Not to mention, these references were specifically for DBD killers that already exist, not a new killer. So it makes it seem like we could, or not a fake killer. You get what I'm saying. So it makes it seem like we could see him in the future. And one more thing, they put a lot of emphasis on this reference to Frank Stone at that very ending. So I think it could mean that Behavior is teasing a possible casting of Frank Stone chapter in the future, possibly before the anniversary. But we'll wait to see. So with all of these references to DBD, what are my overall thoughts on the casting of Frank Stone? I'm gonna be honest though, I'm pretty disappointed with this game. The story is great, the characters are pretty nice, but the thing is that really just kind of kills me is obviously how little actually gameplay there is. Because again, it's watching 4 minutes of cutscenes, you walk around for maybe like 30 seconds, and then you trigger another 4 minutes, and maybe you get to make a decision that'll not really impact the game. It's just really, really boring. And sometimes there will even be moments where it constantly switches back to sections. So it has like two main time periods. You get to the 1980s and the 2020s. And sometimes it would switch back like 3 or 4 times before you actually even get a chance to play it. And it's really annoying. It felt like I paid $50 for a movie posing as a game you sometimes get to play. So with all this being said, I give the casting of Frank Stone, God, I'm just having a horrible time speaking right now. I give the casting of Frank Stone a 4 out of 10. A little bit of a rocky start to Behavior's more lore-heavy games. Well, if we get more, that is. But the game didn't exactly send me writing an angry review on Steam demanding my money back and spamming, "I think we did a pretty good job so far," like most DBD players when they find the smallest bug in the dang game. But I will say it's definitely not worth the $50 that I paid. Now, I'm unsure if you get the collectible, you get a selection of rewards when you pre-order the game. And, of course, there's the regular edition and the deluxe edition. I paid the $50 for the deluxe edition to get all the rewards. And I'm not sure if after the pre-order is done, if you can still buy the game and get the rewards. I was told it has to be pre-ordered, but I could be wrong. But if you can still get the rewards after the pre-order, I would say just wait for the game to go on sale instead of paying the $50 or $40 right now, because it really didn't feel worth it, but it also didn't exactly feel like the worst thing ever. Because while the graphics are definitely more gorgeous than Kate Denson, it still is not worth the $50, because again, you're mostly just watching a movie. Alright, well, that's my review for the casting of Frank Stone. I originally did not plan on making a review for this game, but I did want to try something new, and I had the motivation to make a video, so I wanted to make a review of a new game after going into it completely blind. Sorry for the random mess ups when I was talking. I'm reading this off of a script. I wrote a pretty long script for this. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you enjoyed this review, and yeah, bye-bye.